regular meeting scheduled for Wednesday, and it got canceled because there wasn't a quorum. And so the agenda that we have for today's meeting is the agenda that was supposed to be for that meeting. And so now we've rescheduled it to today, and it becomes called a special meeting because there are items that require voting, and otherwise it would have been a committee of the whole. There was originally a committee of the whole meeting for today, and like I said, we then bumped the agenda from last week's meeting to today. All right, so that should explain why it's labeled a special meeting, to hopefully clear up some of that confusion. I hope I cleared up some of the confusion. And we will start this meeting in a few seconds. All right, I would like to call this meeting to order. I acknowledge the Similkameen Valley on which we learn, work, and organize is the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Similkameen people and is home of the Upper Similkameen Indian Band. I would like to have a motion to adopt the agenda for today's meeting. Moved by Councillor Gould, seconded by Councillor McLean. All in favor? No, I didn't see your hand, that's all. Yeah, I know, it's procedural. All right, so that's carried. We have no minutes from previous meetings, but we have petitions and delegations, and so I have to read this long preamble. Each delegation shall be limited to a 15-minute presentation unless a longer period is agreed to by 2/3 majority vote of council members present. The Town of Princeton Council, by resolution carried unanimously, provides an opportunity for individuals to address council as per delegations and petitions with regard to items included in the agenda, excluding bylaws in which a public hearing consultation period has been held. Council reserves the right to refuse an individual to speak if that individual has spoken at previous meetings regarding an item. Individuals wishing to participate in this opportunity are required to put their name on this list and reference the agenda item that is to be addressed. Each person will have a maximum of 15 minutes at council's discretion to bring forward their comments. Our first presentation is from KMPG, the 2025 financial statement, and Murray M. Smith, the auditor, is here to present that to us. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time this morning. My name is Craig Woods, and I'm Executive Director at KPMG. I'm in charge of the financial statement audit for the Town of Princeton, along with Murray Smith. And so management has asked me to present the financial statements for 2025, along with our audit findings. And so first, I'd like to begin by thanking James and his team for the hard work throughout the audit process. And I'll first begin by walking through the draft financial statements that include all the note disclosures along with our draft auditor's report. If there's any questions, we can pause there, and then I'll continue on with our audit findings report thereafter. So at a high level, before I begin, we're nearing the completion of the 2025 audit. As I'll mention, when we go through our audit findings report, there's a few remaining items that require wrapping up in order for us to finalize the audit. But essentially the financial statements in their draft form are not expected to change from what I'm presenting today. And so to begin, the Town of Princeton financial statements, they're prepared in accordance with public sector accounting standards. As mentioned at the start, we have our draft auditor's report. Based on the work that we've performed, we're expected to issue an unmodified opinion, so that's a clean auditor's report for 2025. And if I just get to the statement of financial position. So for the statement of financial position, which resembles the balance sheet in the private sector, the financial assets for 2025 decreased from 21 million in 2024 to 18.5 million in 2025. The largest decrease relates to accounts receivable, which decreased from 4.6 million to 2.3 million. And this decrease is largely related to accounts receivable, which were related to the flood. The other captions in the financial assets category are comparable to prior year. There's not generally significant changes in the other asset categories. In respect of liabilities, the liabilities increased from 13.1 million to 14.3 million. And the main change being the increase in deferred revenue, increasing from 2.6 million to 3.9 million. Okay. Is this, maybe if this turns on?
It doesn't rebroadcast through the.
Okay,
It's
okay,
just-
I'll just raise my voice then. Okay. And so the liabilities increased from 13.1 million to 14.3 million, and the main increase related to deferred revenue. And so deferred revenue increased from 2.6 million to 3.9 million. And the category with the largest change, which is shown in note 7 of our the financial statements, is unspent capital grants, which increased from 1.8 million to 3.3 million. The remaining accounts in the financial liabilities are generally comparable to the prior year, with slight increases in accounts payable and the asset retirement obligation. And these increases were partially offset by repayment of term debt, which decreased from 7.2 million to 7 million. And so the resulting net financial assets for 2025 were approximately 4.2 million. Then now the next area is non-financial assets. So the non-financial assets are mainly town-owned capital assets and infrastructure, and these are recorded at historical cost less accumulated amortization. And the total non-financial assets increased from 41.6 million to 46.6 million in 2025. And the details of the tangible capital assets, which make up the majority of the non-financial assets except for prepaid expenses, which represent approximately $89,000, and inventory of supplies of $208,000. The breakdown is within note 8, and essentially the categories with the largest additions during the year were buildings with 4.7 million of additions, water infrastructure with 1.3 million, and then with the additions in equipment and sewer infrastructure around $500,000 each. The accumulated surplus was approximately 51 million at the end of 2025. Moving on to the statement of operations and accumulated surplus. And so this statement resembles the income statement in the private sector, and it shows the movements from January 1st to December 31st in relation to revenues and expenses. And so the total revenue for 2025 increased from decreased from 18.4 million in 2024 to 12.3 million. And this was the decrease was largely related to a decrease in regards to federal and provincial grants, which decreased by 6.3 million. There was increase in taxation revenue of approximately $300,000, a decrease of return on investments by $460,000, and this was offset by an increase in regional district grants by approximately $370,000. For total expenses, which include amortization, the total expenses were $11.8 million in 2025, which is comparable to prior year of 11.7 million in 2024. This resulted in surplus of $500,000 before other income. And so you can see in the other income section, there is $1 million that has been recognized related to proceeds on insurance claims. In terms of the other expense categories, which on an overall basis are comparable year over year, there was an increase in economic development expenses of $130,000, increase in recreation and culture of $80,000, increase in water utility expenses of $217,000, and a decrease in transportation of $530,000. So moving on to, and at the bottom, you'll notice there is an additional section that we have added. There was a correction of accounting error, which is described in note 20, and this was $1 million. So essentially, the prior year column, as you can see at the top, has a caption called restated, and so there was a correction that is described in note 20, and this essentially reconciles the beginning accumulated surplus as previously reported in the prior year for this accounting error that was corrected in the current year. In terms of the statement of changes in net financial assets, this statement is essentially a reconciliation between the operating surplus of the year and the ending value of net financial assets. And so the largest movements that are summarized here relate to tangible capital assets. And so there was in total $7.9 million of acquisitions related to tangible capital assets. So additions in the various asset categories. This was offset by amortization of tangible capital assets of $6.7 million. And then there's other smaller movements that relate to prepaids and inventories. In terms of the statement of cash flows, this essentially reconciles the annual surplus and shows the various movements, including identifying which items included in annual surplus are non-cash items, to break it down between the capital transactions, investing activities, and financing activities to arrive at the change in the cash and cash equivalent balance for the year. As mentioned, the amortization of tangible capital assets is a non-cash item. So these assets were previously purchased in a previous year, and so over their useful life, they're being amortized and accounted for in the year that they're being used. And so this is adjustment, and so there was no costs, like no cash outflows related to the amortization, but there was in terms of the additions, which are shown below, where we have the acquisition of tangible capital assets of $7.3 million. So the negatives are the outflows of cash, and the positives would be inflows or adjustments related to non-cash items. In terms of the notes to the financial statements, these provide additional information in terms of the balances that are shown on the statements that I just went through. And so I'll just touch on a few items as we're going through. And so for cash and cash equivalents, so there's a breakdown between cash on deposits and money market funds. And so there is interest being earned on some of the cash that's held. And so that's why it's shown as this breakdown, because some are in short-term investments that are generating interest income. In terms of accounts receivable, as mentioned, the change in the accounts receivable from the prior year, which is a decrease, largely relates to the decrease in grants year over year. In terms of long-term investments, so the town includes two investments. So one is its investment in 673244 BC, which is essentially a holding company, and that there's no activity in that entity. And then there's also Vermilion Forks Forest, Vermilion Forks Community Forest Corporation, which is 30% owned by the town, and this statement provides a breakdown of the details related to their financial results. So it summarizes the assets and liabilities of these entities, as well as the town's interest at a third for Vermilion Forks. In terms of deferred revenue, as mentioned, that there was an increase in deferred revenue year over year. The largest change related to unspent capital grants, which increased from 1.7 million of deferred revenue to 3.4 in the prior year. And there was smaller movements in building and development permits, as well as taxes and utility billings. In terms of term debt, so as mentioned, the total term debt has decreased due to the principal repayments, and so all term debt is held to the Municipal Finance Authority, and there is no unexpected changes in relation to term debts. And as for some of these longer term debts, the interest rates may be renewed at certain points in time because they're held over longer periods. So, for example, this one term debt is held and not due until 2052, but the interest rate is reset in 2032, and that's just essentially just the nature of the debt and how it's structured through MFA. In terms of tangible capital assets, so as mentioned, the largest breakdown in relation to additions during the year relate to buildings with 4.7 million and water infrastructure at 1.3. There was smaller increases in the other categories, but most categories did have additions during the year, and this is offset by the amortization related to the use of these assets over their useful life, and that's shown in this lower section. In terms of accumulated surplus, this note provides a breakdown of the operating fund broken down between equity and tangible capital assets and unrestricted surplus, and it also provides a breakdown of reserves set aside by council for specific purposes. In terms of taxation grant and grants in lieu, this schedule here provides a breakdown of the various taxation revenue that was collected by the city, some of which are then transferred to other governments in relation to school tax, police tax, regional district items, etc. And so this provides a breakdown to show the amount that is reported on the financial statements of 5.2 million, but there's collections of 7.5 million, but then there's various transfers that are to other governments, so this provides the full breakdown of those details. And then also for the town, the information is also displayed based on segments, and so the information on the statement of operations is then also broken down by the various segments of the town. So it's like broken down between protective services, transportation services, environmental health, public health and welfare, economic development, recreation and cultural services, and general government services. And so this schedule provides a breakdown of the various revenue and expense items into each of these categories for the various purposes, and on the previous page it describes what the segments are related to. And as mentioned, there was one correction of accounting error that was corrected related to 2024, and this relates to the timing of recognition of deferred revenue, deferred development costs revenue in sales of services and rental revenue. And so the impact is essentially related to 2024, but because it was corrected in the current year, there needs to be an adjustment related to the prior year because the amount is material. And so this provides a breakdown of the financial statement captions that are impacted as a result of the restatement. And so this provides a detail of the amounts in the 2024 financial statements and then the restated amounts after the correction, which are displayed in these statements in the 2024 column. And at the end of the financial statements, there's one unaudited schedule. That's a required disclosure related to funding that was received for the Growing Communities Fund grant. And so that has been included here. At the end of the year, the full balance of the Growing Communities Fund has been spent, so there is no balance at the end of the year. But this disclosure is required for reporting purposes. And so maybe I'll pause there before turning to the audit findings report just to see if there's any questions from Mayor and Council.
Any questions are on the table? Councillor McLean? Any questions so far?
Did I indicate anything?
Just checking. Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, perfect. So now moving on to our audit findings report. So this will give a few highlights in regards to the results of our audit for the year. So as mentioned in terms of where we're at for the audit, we're essentially at the end of the financial statement audit, but there's a few required procedures and items that are required in order for us to be able to finalize the audit. So one is having this meeting here with you today to present the financial statements and the results of our audit. In addition, receiving the management representation letter, obtaining evidence of council's approval of the financial statements, completing subsequent event review procedures. So we've already had discussions with management that there's been no subsequent events that would require disclosure. But again, we're kind of having that conversation with you as well to just make sure that the financial statements are complete and that no further adjustments are required. And then we also are awaiting receipt of our legal confirmation. So that's one of our required procedures, is sending a legal confirmation letter to legal counsel. So that's one item that we're waiting on in order to finalize. And then also there's kind of final sign-offs in relation to these items, as well as for the prior period error that was corrected. As part of our internal quality processes, we have a mandatory consultation process that's underway and in the process of being finalized. And so once we're through those items, then we'll be able to issue the final audited financial statements. In terms of the materiality for the audit, so we established a materiality at the start of the audit for essentially scoping our procedures, as well as determining items that are then reported back to council. And so for the audit, because there's the various components, so there's the town of Princeton, but also there's Vermilion and the numbered company, this is considered a group audit. And so we consider that when planning our audit procedures. Based on the size of Vermilion and the numbered company, we consider those to be non-significant components for the purposes of the audit of the consolidated financial statements of the town of Princeton. But those still do have like standalone audits performed over them. In terms of the materiality was established for the group at $330,000. That was based on normalized revenues at the planning stages, which we decreased from the prior year materiality of $430,000 due to the decrease in revenue in the current year. For the component materiality, we established that at $310,000, again based on preliminary revenues, and that's and that is again is used for helping us to determine the scope of our audit as well as the items that we're reporting back. We report to you any differences that we identify during the course of our audit that are either corrected or uncorrected above 15,500. So there's a much lower threshold that we are reporting and performing to, and the materiality is just an overall scope for determining what is significant and establishing our procedures for responding to those. In terms of significant risks and results, there's one significant risk that's non-rebuttable risk that's present in all audits, and so that's management override of controls. And so as this is a non-rebuttable risk, our audit methodology incorporates procedures to respond to this, and so we perform testing over journal entries and other adjustments, performing retrospective review of estimates, and evaluating business rationale for significant unusual transactions if there were any. There were none noted in the current year. And as a result of the procedures performed, I'll talk to this a bit later, but we have considered significant control deficiency in relation to lack of detailed review of journal entries. And so in smaller entities, smaller municipalities, this is often present due to the smaller finance team. And essentially, I'll talk to it a little bit more later, but essentially we do see it in smaller organizations that there is challenges in terms of certain segregation of duties or certain reviews due to the smaller finance function in place. In terms of required inquiries, we have completed our inquiries during the course of the audit with management as well as with the mayor. Our team had discussions with the mayor. And so we're just including these for information purposes of the rest of council so that they can see the various items that were discussed. And if there are anything that should be brought to our attention as well for the finalization of the audit, feel free to bring it up at any time during the presentation. In terms of other specific topics and other areas, largely there's no matters to report in these various areas. In terms of, as I mentioned, for the legal confirmation, that's one item that we're waiting back on. But in terms of conversations with management, there's no significant areas of concern that have been brought to our attention. And there's a general disclosure in the financial statements with respect to potential litigation and claims that may occur from time to time against the town. In terms of subsequent events, there's no subsequent events that have been brought to our attention that require disclosure. But again, if there are any events that mayor and council are aware of, we'd be happy to discuss and consider if those may require disclosure or adjustment in the financial statements. In terms of uncorrected misstatements, the next page summarizes the uncorrected misstatements, but as a percentage of the annual surplus, the net impact of the uncorrected misstatements is 4.2% of annual surplus, and of total assets, it's 0.0% of total assets. And so for the uncorrected misstatements in the current year, I'll kind of just summarize at a high level. The first one relates to tangible capital assets, and so it relates to amortization on TCAs that's not being picked up for the full year. So essentially, amortization is currently being taken based on a half-year policy as opposed to when the assets are put into use. In speaking with James, he plans to implement a revised policy next year to start taking amortization on the month that an asset is put into use, so it'll more accurately reflect the amortization of assets over their useful life, as opposed to a bit of an approximation based on this half-year rule. And so this is expected to not increase, but if it does get corrected in next year as part of the opening balances, then it will eliminate. Otherwise, it will over time decrease as the assets are amortized over their useful lives. The next item relates to the current year impact of a prior year misstatement related to correcting insurance revenue. And so this relates to a classification between equity and the statement of operations. The next one is really in relation to the current year impact of a prior year projected misstatement related to payroll. So last year there was a misstatement identified that was projected, so there was some factual differences identified, but then it was projected over the entire population. The projected portion was not adjusted, and so this is showing the current year impact of that prior year misstatement, and so next year this will roll off because it just shows it is in relation to the timing difference. The next one is related to the current year impact of a prior year projected misstatement related to accounts receivable. So similar to the one mentioned for payroll, again, this is the related to the timing difference of that prior year misstatement. So next year, again, this rolls off. The next one is related to the impact of differences between the amortization policy and public sector accounting standards. So it's kind of similar to the first item, but we've just kind of categorized these into two separate lines. And so the net impact for the statement of operations is $67,000 that has been uncorrected. In terms of corrected misstatements, and so the first one relates to the prior year error that's disclosed in the financial statement notes, and this relates to the reversal of revenue related to prior year DCCs recorded in error. So this was corrected in the current year, but because there's a correction that flows through, we need to adjust for it. So these have all been reflected in the draft financial statements that have been reflected and presented a few minutes ago. The next one relates to an adjustment for the accrual for wages payable at year end. And so again, as part of our procedures, we identified a difference, and this has been corrected by management. The next one is the reversal of an undistributed MFA loan that doesn't meet the criteria for recognition. So because it hasn't been distributed yet by MFA, there's not currently a liability to the city. So we've proposed an adjustment which management has corrected to remove this from the financial statements. The next is to adjust the loan liability to year end. So again, as part of our procedures, we identified a difference as we were working through and proposed an adjustment to management, which has been corrected. The next one relates to the ARO provision related to tangible capital assets to year end. So again, that there was an adjustment that was identified during the course of our work, and this was subsequently corrected by management. The next couple are classification within the same asset category, and so they have no net impact on the financial statement caption, but they're the change in the balances between which line item on the financial statements they're presented. So the first one shown there relates to insurance, and the second relates to inventory and tangible capital assets. There were a few disclosure corrections also that were corrected in the current year, and these don't impact the face of the statements that we went through, but it impacts some of the note disclosures that are included. And so one relates to the correction of amortization recorded to the fixed asset cost account. The next relates to transfers, amounts transferred to reserves that were not approved by council back to unrestricted surplus. And so that's $15,000 in those categories. And then there was an adjustment related to the equity and tangible capital assets. So again, related to presentation. And so those are the items that were corrected during the course of the audit. In terms of control deficiencies, as mentioned, there's kind of one item that came up as part of our journal entry testing that I mentioned in relation to essentially segregation of duties. And so as mentioned in smaller entities, smaller municipalities, the finance function is smaller, and so someone like James, for example, is performing a lot of the functions, and there's not necessarily a secondary review of some of the more complicated entries that he's posting. And so we're just raising this to the attention of council that, well, you regularly perform reviews of the financial results. There isn't a detailed review of some of the areas that he's performing. So again, that's just a risk area to consider and see if it can be mitigated if either, say, the CAO or if council is able to perform a detailed review, or if certain items that James is doing, if other members of his team are able to take on so that he could perform that detailed review. So again, it's somewhat challenging because some of the items that he's performing are a bit more complicated and require his knowledge. So again, just something to raise to your attention. And this also relates to the review of financial information. So some of the differences related to accruals and year-end balances, there were differences that have been identified and recorded as corrected audit differences. So again, this having a secondary or detailed review of some of these items may help to eliminate some of those entries from being required in future periods. And so the next few slides are just more for information purposes and providing details in terms of our approach to audit quality and how we're performing our audit engagement. So I'm not going to touch on those in detail and how we incorporate technology into our audit process. As your external auditors, we're independent of the town. So again, we're just reiterating that and communicating that as part of our report, and including some required communications as part of that. So essentially we're just restating that as of the date of this communication, we're in compliance with all relevant ethical requirements that are applicable. And at the end, we've included kind of other required communications, so I'm not going to touch on those in detail, but it includes information such as management responsibilities that, again, just for information purposes, we have included our management representation letter as well. And so that's what James will be signing at the as part of those remaining items for the engagement, and that includes the corrected and uncorrected differences. We've also included some information related to new auditing standards that were effective for this year, and so we're just providing some background related to that, as well as upcoming changes to accounting standards that will be applicable for future years. So while not immediately applicable, that there will be changes in relation to the financial statement presentation. So again, just providing some advanced information on that, as well as other developments and other standard changes that are coming down the pipe, but again are not applicable until future years. So again, just for background and information purposes. And then the remaining slides are just other resources in the electronic version that James has. There's links to some thought leadership and other information that may be relevant for mayor and council. So with that, I'll maybe pause and see if there's any questions and hand it back to the mayor.
I have none. Yes, Councillor Gould.
Thank you. So, this is always riveting, and if you're not an accountant, you're kind of could be lost in the weeds. So, being that I do not have a legal accounting background or full knowledge of all the practices, I need to ask, do you find that these financial audit that you did on the town to be, like I see the results were in favor, like there's no concerns. But you did mention that there was that correction of $1 million for the DCCs. Can I just ask, is that because it was projected and not received, or?
Maybe I can.
Yeah, maybe James speak
Might
to that
be a
first.
little easier. So, the $1 million refers to the DCCs on the Princeton Point development. They were invoiced out, but then the developer actually reversed and did not end up using the invoice. So it had to be reversed out, and because it was so late in the year, it wasn't able to be reversed out in 2024. So it got reversed out in 2025, which triggers this restatement.
Okay, thank you. That I kind of thought it was something like a projected and not received. Okay, and then the insurance adjustment as well, is that still flood related? James?
Yes, so there's just because of the timing of how the insurance claim is operating, and the fact that the backup source of funds is the $11.9 million Treasury Board flood grant from the province. There's some timing differences between those two as well, which triggers in very similar manner to the DCCs. So it has to be adjusted based on accounting standards.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, we just got these this morning, so I wasn't able to review it in detail. Can I get a copy of that audited finance report that you just went through?
Yeah, I'll send that to
Yeah,
you.
James will circulate
Yeah.
back to
Thank
council.
you.
All right, Craig, carry on.
That's everything that I had to
That's all you
cover.
have?
So yeah, if there's any questions or comments, happy to go into anything more depth if you need it, but that's what I was planning to cover today.
Thank you for the short version. Yeah, thank you again for all you do for us. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next on our agenda, we have,
My question would be
sorry,
through to financial officer. Is there a summary year over year in terms of our financial standing to do with reserves, et cetera, and all that kind of thing? Or is it different than a business? You're just required to balance out each year, one year after another?
Yeah, so the reserves adjust annually, obviously, with using them and replenishing them, and we're required to replenish all the reserves by the interest that's made by the municipality in proportion to how much reserves are held in each different individual reserve. But yeah, there we can draw up a 5-year comparison of them if that's what you prefer. But every year we have to report on them.
But basically, we're just supposed to run at zero each year, right?
Yeah, well, we always have a small surplus. That just means that our reserves are
Yeah,
increasing
within-
as opposed to
within
decreasing.
reason. Yeah, okay.
all right, thank you. Next, we have a speaker who has signed the speaking sheet from the delegation, and it's Carrie Torgerson. The floor is yours. You have 15 minutes.
Just makes your view a little bit better if I move.
Sorry?
It just makes your view a little bit better if I move the computer.
Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to consider my letter regarding the water meter installation at my mother's home. Just before I get into substance, I want to be clear about the perspective that I'm offering. I've worked in real estate development and construction for close to 20 years. In my current role, I lead municipal approvals, legal compliance, risk strategy, and so on active development projects. I routinely interpret municipal bylaws, coordinate with legal counsel, and ensure that programs tied to regulatory authority are structured in a way that is both legally defensible and practically implementable. As it stands, this program, it has gaps. If those gaps aren't addressed, it risks challenge, delay, and ultimately the failure to meet the objectives that you've intended to achieve. I don't oppose the program. I'm here just to ensure that moving forward, it holds up under scrutiny and it delivers on the outcomes that it's intended to achieve. I'd also like to respectfully address process and transparency. I've reviewed Council's February 18th, 2026 minutes and the agenda for this meeting, which confirms that Council moves into a closed session under Section 90.1 subsection K of the Community Charter for all discussions related to this utility provision for residents of the city. While I understand that there are circumstances where closed discussion can be appropriate, when residents see a program being pushed that requires access inside their private homes, and the key direction appears to have come out of a closed process, it creates distrust. Residents need confidence that decisions affecting their homes are being made transparently with a clear record of the rationale and the protections being put in place. Council needs to ensure that any compelled work inside of a home is lawful under the current bylaw, technically appropriate for the specific property, and does not expose residents to unreasonable risk. As outlined in my letter, My mother's home was built in the 1950s, likely contains legacy plumbing. This concern is not theoretical. Installation as proposed creates a real and foreseeable risk of pipe failure, leak, or damage occurring inside the living space itself. For someone living alone in their 70s, without financial means to repair significant water damage, that risk is not manageable. Equal treatment of these types of homes creates an unequal impact. At this point, there are critical questions that are unanswered, including whether the current bylaw actually applies to homes like this, how installation requirements such as Section 6.6 are satisfied, whether there is a proper site-specific approval under Section 6.7, and who is financially responsible if something goes wrong on legacy plumbing. There is also the broader concern about whether this program is being implemented in a way that is transparent and accountable given the scale of the public funding involved. So my question to council today is this: will the town commit to publicly releasing the contract, the associated funding or grant documentation, and clear confirmation of bylaw compliance before proceeding further with installation? I'm asking for a reasonable temporary deferral until the legal applicability is clearly confirmed, the technical risks are properly assessed, and the liability and protection issues are addressed. It's a cautious and responsible approach.
Thank you for your presentation, and I'd be lying if I said that this rolled out perfectly and as planned. There's no doubt there's been roadblocks, gaps, errors, mistakes, and we own that. We certainly own that. The response to your letter, I'm hoping we can make public. I'm going to request that and see if we could do that. But I thank you for your presentation, and
Yeah, I mean,
hopefully we can move forward.
yeah, a meter program it's a phenomenal thing. It's a great infrastructure addition for the town of Princeton. But if it results in, not actually meeting the grant criteria to receive the grant, then it's just another expense. And we have, tons of homeowners who have already paid to have a meter installed. They're not getting anything back, but now they have to put another meter that exposes them to risk. So installing in a home that was built in 2020 makes perfect sense. Installing that exact same thing in a house built in 1940, 1950, 1960, it makes no sense. You turn off the water on those brittle pipes for 20 minutes, you install this meter, and I've seen pictures with, 4 90-degree angles, and then you turn the water back on. Now what happens is that water finds the weakest point in all of those systems. Now you have a failed pipe. Your insurance will likely cover it. The contractor's insurance will not cover legacy plumbing. But once your insurance pays for it, now you're paying a higher flood risk insurance the following year. So it just doesn't make sense as it's being rolled out. And I'd be happy to talk with council or mayor or anyone who would like to discuss how to bring this forward in a more transparent way that actually provides a mutually beneficial solution to the residents. Willing and able.
Thank you. Any discussion around the table? Councillor Gould?
I have questions. Thank you for your presentation. I know it takes courage to get up there and talk in front of a lot
I think
of
the last
people.
time I spoke publicly, I was about 12, so.
So you did well. So in regards to this, like you made some valid points and then some that I would also challenge.
Fair.
And I too have been, I tend to want to speak from experience and how did my experience go with this? So I've been waiting myself to get the information about the program. I support having water meters in the community. I think there's very good reason for it. I was also glad that we were successful in getting the application. I wasn't at the meeting when when it was awarded back to staff to do the program.
Yep.
And I think we've agreed that there's some gaps that have happened in communication, and that I'm not going to point fingers or anything. I think we could do better, for sure. I received my first letter on May 11th, so I had been going by from what I'd heard from other people. And unless you came and talked to me personally, I don't necessarily read Facebook or believe everything on Facebook.
Yes.
And you mentioned a picture with 90-degree angles. I went back to that poster and I asked specifically
If it was a joke?
if, like, obviously this would be concerning.
Yeah.
They removed the post. So I just encourage everyone to come back to the source. Please, if you have questions and if you feel your questions aren't being answered, then as a counselor, I'd be happy to help move it to see if we can get the answer. You may not get the answer you want, but will we get an answer? But if it's just, like, it tends to feed
It
fire,
snowballs, yes.
right?
But
But no communication could also,
yeah,
be-
no communication is the same size fire as volatile
so I was gonna speak to that in council, we have an opportunity during council reports, I was
Yeah.
gonna just speak to that if, my suggestion for something. But, you did also mention a few points within the current bylaw that
Yes.
I'm gonna have to go back to and read to see which
That's
ones
fair.
you're referring. And then you mentioned about closing to discuss the program. I'm gonna have to ask you specifically, and I
So
do it
in the,
afterwards, which
sorry, I don't have
meeting.
the agenda,
You said February 18th, 2026, so I'm gonna have to, I'll reserve to give an answer on that until I can read that.
sorry, it was February 2024.
2024.
Yeah, February 24th, 2026. English, first language, but you'd never know.
So if you would be open to me being able to confirm that, then I would.
Yeah, so it was agenda item 12.1 on the special meeting agenda for 4 p.m. Tuesday, February 24th, 2026. That the meeting be closed to the public for the purpose of considering under section 90.1 subsection K, negotiation and related discussion respecting the proposed provision of the municipal service that are at their preliminary stages.
So it may be something completely unrelated to it, it may be related to that, I'll just need to confirm.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, thank you, and I have your information. Thank you for that.
Thanks. Any other? Good.
I guess the one thing I'm not understanding is, I have no problem about the business of people having had to, when they built a house or whatever, put in a water meter, and now they're out that money and we have to do something about that as far as I'm concerned. You mentioned about your mom being in an older home,
Yes.
and so I'm missing the problem.
So
Is there
in-
some difference between her
There's
home
a-
and my home?
Yeah, so there's a public perception that if a water meter program was rolled out in, I believe it was 2017 when it was first discussed, 2020, the bylaw was passed, all 4 readings in 1 meeting. Odd, but I guess fine.
All 4?
It looked like, I could be incorrect, 3.
First, second, and third is not
It should be
uncommon.
3.
Yeah,
And that's requires to go out public hearing or otherwise. Then
Okay.
can-
thank you.
You're welcome.
But those meters were never used.
I'm sorry?
The meters that were installed from which 2018 to now, every time someone has applied for a building permit and they have to install a water meter, are they being used? Do people receive metered
Oh,
water
I see
invoices?
what you mean. Are we billing based on meter usage right now? That'd be a finance
Yeah.
question.
We are not billing based on water meter usage for residential. For commercial, we do. And the water meter data that comes from water meters from 2011 and beyond, which is in the current bylaw, is used by the Public Works Department to manage water use and watch for potential leaks from those houses that are installed.
So
So
no,
then-
they're not being billed based on.
So then the Neptune device couldn't be retrofitted to an outdoor meter that already exists? Like, these are the kind of the questions that aren't making sense. If we already have a number of residents who have water meters, why would we not utilize the existing infrastructure?
Do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
You go ahead.
Okay, so the current water the current water meters that are installed use a much weaker RF transmitters. So we literally have to pay a public works employee to drive around with a reader to read all the water meters in town. They do not transmit far enough so that we can read it from one central location. The water meters that are being installed will be able to be read by one central location, eliminating the need to drive around and actually manually read every time we want to read it. They will also transmit, I think it's every 5 minutes? 15? So leak detection becomes a much more feasible operation, because we will have, if someone decided, if a toilet decides to leak, if a hose gets left on, if we have significant leaks at somebody's home, we can notify people and address that, so appropriate repairs can be done, and we can proactively stop people's basements and things from flooding before it even starts. That's the general theory. And yeah, everyone having a water meter, we can start a process where we can build both residential and commercial properties based on the water that gets used. So there's the 3 general reasons for replacement of the water metering.
So the proposed device cannot be installed in an exterior location. It must be installed in an interior location. Like, is it capable of being in the elements? Can it be outside? Because all of the meters that exist currently are attached to much newer infrastructure, which would remove a good portion of the risk of having to install inside a home. You're also not trying to find a water shutoff. The city shutoff is there, it's mapped. The meters exist.
So I think we can defer that again to infrastructure department, because this program is based on the awarding of a grant and the value of that grant. And maybe staff can step in here too and speak on it. But the grant that they had applied for and received was based on it being inside because of the cost to install.
Precisely.
If they were to do the ones at the water main, then we wouldn't be able to, as a community, afford to do that.
So
But
is that-
as based on the value of the grant that we got, we were able to do it for not everyone, because not every house is going, it's not gonna work in every house, but because of age or otherwise. But at no cost was the intent. The intent, let me just start with that. The intent of this council was to do a good thing
Yes.
and install water meters for the community at no cost.
Yeah, most definitely not questioning the intent, and I do fully agree that, you know, a metered system is the way to go.
Right.
It's more so that, like, I'm assuming there's a grant threshold that has to be met. So a specific percentage of residents are gonna have to agree to have this meter installed as it's proposed in order to actually qualify for the grant. There's likely also a timeline in which that needs to be
Correct.
completed. So between those two things, in order to achieve, let's say it's 80%, right? There's what, 1,600 homes? Say you have to get 80% and it has to be done by June 30th. The method in which it's being pushed with no transparency, like there was no cost and benefit analysis provided to the residents. Who knows, maybe everybody would have been totally fine with having their property taxes upped to have that offered, right? The door knocking and the notices saying that, you know, we're gonna cut off your water, that's not supported by any existing bylaw.
Nor is that the message that the town is.
But it's on your letter, it's on the letterhead.
I know. But it did not originate from this office, unfortunately. I understand it's
So
got our letterhead, but it was not our,
Just for public comfort, I mean, a retraction of sort, a notice to the public saying this did not come off of our letterhead would probably go a long way. Hey, we know that, you know, we haven't provided all of the information. We've essentially bullied, or Neptune has bullied a great number of residents in the town of Princeton. That was not our intent. That is not what we intend on supporting going forward. Any messages that you've received that indicate, you know, you will be fined X amount and your water will be shut off did not come from us. We do not support that. Transparency will be provided. We will provide, you know, are discussions and negotiations that happened in closed meetings so that everyone is aware. What is the deadline for this grant? Because everything ties back to, you're now in a contract. It will cost money to get out of the contract. So it's basically, you're at a catch-22. You have a whole bunch of residents who are pissed, and then you have a contract that is going to have an end date. And if you cancel the contract, there will be a liability that will be footed by the town of Princeton, and in turn their residents. If you continue to push forward, there's a good chance that you won't hit the 80% or whichever percent threshold needs to be met. So what's the game plan to make sure that you still get the grant and that the residents aren't being bullied?
Yeah, I think we're at a place where we're calling audibles now just to make that play happen. There's no doubt in my mind, as I said earlier, that it rolled out incorrectly. Neptune was responsible for the communication. We're not happy with how that came out. The wording of one letter, you don't get compliance with threats.
Yeah.
If anything, you lose trust.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I am not impressed with the rollout of their mailings. When you send a final notice letter 3 weeks into a program, that's not fair. If I received that letter, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Talk about the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, the rollout was poor.
And I think that that's what the town of Princeton needs to hear from, the elected officials.
Yeah.
That you agree that, it hasn't been perfect. You don't agree with how they've, how they've decided to implement their program. And maybe it is time to put them on a tighter leash.
I
Maybe a
assure you,
choke
we
chain.
will fix that. There's no doubt about that. Councillor Gould?
Sir, Carrie, one thing I've noticed from, I attended the open house, and when I first got in there, I was later in the evening because I had a medical appointment in Kelowna. We all have lives, we all have
Yep.
things we have to do. But when I attended, when I got there, there were town representatives there was Neptune representatives there, and it was like a big open round house kind of thing.
Yeah.
Everyone was kind of standing around asking questions. And if there's anything I've learned in my time is that questions can sometimes lead to more questions.
Yes,
Not always the answers, but they can lead to questions.
100%.
So that day I learned a few things, and again, I was gonna take my time in the council report to touch on that, but I value that you have the courage to come up and that everybody else took the time to come in and say this today. Today's special meeting was about all that fun stuff we had at the beginning where we listened to the accountant. That's what today's meeting was.
Yes.
Today's meeting is because we have to have a quorum in order to meet a statutory obligation.
Yes.
So that's really my priority today that I want to work on.
Very fair. I just want it on the public
But
record.
we will.
That, yes.
Very gracefully, and I thank you for your time and
Thank
your
you.
talk. Take
I
it
will
as
send it
consideration.
to
For us, because us as council, me as a councillor, I'm only gonna speak for myself, the work I do is here at the table.
Yeah.
But the work is for the people in the community. So if there's concerns, we have to take them seriously. Doesn't always mean you're gonna get the answer you want,
The
or
best-
something's gonna change.
Yeah. So
But we have to, this is where we do it, at this table.
The-
It's unfortunately not on the agenda today.
yes. The best deal is the one where nobody is happy when they leave. That's generally how it works. The best, you can tell you've negotiated fairly if no one is happy at the end of it.
I have heard you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor McLean?
Through to James, I still didn't get any response in terms of what I'm asking is, it sounds as if I have 2 houses that I own. They both have access to the incoming water line in the basement or whatever, and in both cases they're easy. I heard something about in an older home, there's a problem. Her mom has a problem with, because it's an older home. I'm missing something here.
So depending on the material that your pipes are made of, like copper in particular becomes brittle with age. You get minor pinholes. The pressure of turning on the water afterwards will find the weakest point in the existing plumbing. I've seen it with sprinkler head replacements on, I don't know, probably 300 different occasions. finds the weakest point and it creates a leak. This is not covered under any contractor warranty. It is not covered under their insurance because it's due to existing plumbing. Now, without the meters, homeowners would not have to upgrade their plumbing. If they put a water meter in, there is a good chance that somebody is gonna come in and say, hey, listen, if we turn this off, you might have a leak, you might not, you should upgrade. To upgrade the entire plumbing system on a house built in the 1950s would be somewhere to the tune of like 50, 60 grand. That's where the risk comes in. In a new pipe, it's all, what is it, ABS? It's great. You're not gonna have these issues.
So I'm missing the point, a water meter doesn't add any pressure to,
No, it's
to-
the installation itself. So in order to install the water meter, you have to turn the water off, cut an existing pipe,
yeah,
install the meter, and then turn the water back on.
yeah,
So the pressure of turning off the water and then turning on the water afterwards creates the pressure that finds the weakest spot in the piping.
To then
Which-
leak.
Yeah. And so
It's
I,
fact.
yeah, I build townhomes and condos, that's my job as a development manager. So I talk to 4 different plumbers on our sites. It's not theoretical, it's an actual considerable
first I've
risk.
ever heard of it.
Well,
Turning on the
that
water
doesn't mean it's
creates
not
a
real.
shock wave in the pipe that finds the
No matter
weakest
how
point.
quickly you turn it on or anything.
It doesn't
It
matter.
has nothing to do with it.
If you just jam it on, it creates a worse wave, but there is a way, even at the most careful, you still generate a shock wave.
Right.
How is that fair on the homeowner to have to go out and spend up to $100,000 to replace all their plumbing in their house? That is turning this program that you think is gonna benefit us, the citizens, into a real financial hardship. And how hubris of you to put that onto us homeowners.
All right, well, we thank you for your input tonight, or this morning rather. And we do have a meeting we have to continue with, so if you don't mind, I'd like to continue with
Could
our
I just
agenda.
say, we have a ton of work to do on this.
Yeah,
And
No
I'm
doubt.
hearing things that I've never heard before, which it only adds to the already,
And due diligence should have been done to this before it was rolled out.
already
You should know
adds
the
to
answers
the,
by now. You're a
already
seasoned
adds to
council.
the
We
problem
shouldn't have to
of
school
what,
you on your civic duties.
all right. Again, I thank you all for your attending and for your input. Item number 5, unfinished business, we have none. Number 6, staff reports. 6.1 is sprinkling regulations. Who would like to take this on?
You, Jared, or is that sprinkling regulations?
I can speak.
All right, that'd be great.
We have a bylaw in place for sprinkling regulations that, council has to make the decision what stage we are for sprinkling regulations. So we're asking council to delegate the CAO and the Director of Civic Works to be able to make that decision on what stage we're at for water restrictions, based on information that Jared or Lyle will get from the province.
Okay, so the motion reads, the council delegate their authority to the chief administrative officer and the director of civic works to determine the applicable stage of water restrictions for 2026. Someone like to make a motion to that?
So moved, Deputy Mayor.
And Councillor McLean seconds, all in favor? Thank you very much. Item 6.2, fire protection mutual aid agreement between the town of Princeton and the Eastgate Fire Protection Society.
Thank you, Council.
Good timing. Would you like to explain this to us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Council, staff, and people that are congregated behind me in the gallery. This has to do with a mutual aid agreement with Eastgate Fire Society. We currently have a mutual aid agreement with the regional district and other municipalities within the area of the regional district governance. This agreement is outside of that. The agreement comes up for renewal in 2028. And in the interim period, they would like to initiate the same agreement with the town of Princeton over the next convening years. The agreement is for 5 years in case there's a problem, but it definitely doesn't need to extend that far. The recommendation is the town of Princeton enter into a mutual aid agreement with the Eastgate Fire Protection Society, and the mayor and CAO are authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the town.
All right.
This would be the 9th signing member for the regional district agreement going forward.
All right. Someone like to make that motion? Councillor McLean, seconded by Councillor Gould. Any
I'll
questions?
second, but yes, I have a question. So, thank you, Ed. This is, like, the mutual aid agreement's been very beneficial to the town and our surrounding area. It's been successful. So I'm wholeheartedly in support of this. I just wanna confirm that there's no cost to the town when they do enact if we were to go out to Eastgate.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So there's no additional costs for setting up the agreement. We already carry the amount of insurance that's required for our fire protection fire department. The only cost that would be borne by the town would be the cost of wages for our staff to enter into a fire protection stance with their organization at that time. We're not paying for their services to come to us, and if there are any losses during the fire, that's covered by the insurance or recouped through exchange of equipment or replacement.
Okay. So then the time to apply for those reimbursements would then, like if it was a call from Eastgate for us to attend to help them and we have a loss like a fire hose or anything like that, and there's a cost that they can reimburse us? Are they applying for it or are we applying for it?
It would be on their insurance policy.
Okay. So
but
we would just be added into their
Yeah.
full-
Yeah, when it comes to items like that, usually it's on a truck, and we just move it from one truck to the other, and they're replacing it at their own cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, sorry, this is just the dates of yours is to overlapping,
Yes.
add them in when we renew the main one.
Yes, yes. So at the time of renewal, they'll be captured by the regional district group agreement, and we will extinguish ours.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. I will ask the question. All in favor? And we will continue. No opposed, so there we go. Off to item 6.3, the 2025 Town of Princeton Financial Statement, and I will pass this on to the Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I thank Mr. Craig Woods for presenting our financial statements for 2025. Thank you KPMG for their diligent help through the year. The financial audit is always a challenging time. The auditors challenge us in the finance department to prove our methodology, but we've always had a positive financial audit, and we have another one this year, yeah, it helps us refine our systems, and it's a very useful tool in our toolbox. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs requires us to submit approved financial statements from council before May 15th, which means May 14th, which means tomorrow. So I do need approval of the financial statements by council so they can be submitted to the province of British Columbia.
Alrighty, and the motion is the council receive and approve the 2025 financial statements as presented earlier today by Craig Woods. Murray M. Smith is listed as well, the auditors with KPMG. Moved by Councillor McLean, seconded by Councillor Gould. All in favor? You have your wishes. Off to item number 7, council reports. Councillor McLean, have you got anything to report? No? Councillor Gould?
Yes. I attended the open house, in regards to the water meters, which was, had members of staff present, cause they are the ones who have rolled out the program. So the CAO was there, Director of Infrastructure, Jerry Thomas was there, Finance Director, James Graham was there, and then we had our engineer, consultant, I don't know his proper title, but Sean was there. He was there to answer questions, as well as 2 representatives from Neptune. And I went because I had questions myself, and I found that all of the questions that I had, or concerns that I had, were addressed, were answered. And a lot of concerns that weren't answered were referred back, that come and have a conversation and we'll find out. One of the things I found out, you had said about older homes. Well, so not every home is going to be able to get these meters put in. There's gonna be some that are gonna be found to be ineligible, and then they'll get referred back to the town for figuring out another option. So in answering those questions, a lot of concerns there were alleviated. Concerns about what the water meter looks like, because even like that Facebook post that shows multiple 90 degrees, well, I'm not a plumber and that didn't look right to me, but I went to the source of who posted it and they confirmed they weren't able to confirm that was a legitimate thing. So they removed that post. So my point is, we need to share the information we already have. So if I could make a suggestion or a request, would be that maybe we do like a summary of the main concerns and the answers to that, and that we can somehow publish that out. Because there was one particular one too, where a resident had a concern about the meter and the RMF. Is it RMF or RF? RF being near in their home, or in their home, and it was Neptune confirmed it goes outside. But then the location of that meter is a concern, and our current bylaw clearly states the concern was of being inside in their bedroom, because it's an older home and that's where their main is. It can't even be installed in a bedroom, so that would be one of the ones that would be, it's ineligible to be installed. It'll be deferred back to the town. So I think if concerns like that can be alleviated, or again, encourage people to come to the source. So come to the town needs to answer the questions. Please be nice to our front staff. They're just the first line of people. They're not the ones making the decisions. They're just trying to share the information. And if there's concerns, the majority of them I think can be easily answered. So there's the option for e-service requests online. There's the option of writing a letter. And if you find that your question or concern isn't being addressed, then let us know and we'll find out why. Or it was addressed and they still wasn't the answer you wanted, right? Sometimes it's not always going to be the answer we want. But I was reluctant when I heard that there was threatening letters, because I hadn't seen one. I got mine on May 11th. It's not threatening in any way, because it's my initial notice. But my understanding was there's a 5-step process in it with Neptune. They send an initial contact, a follow-up, and then 2 yellow door tags, and then this final notice. And then I saw the final notice that was shared online, and I was tagged in it. I don't go searching for Facebook, because that's not, I don't want to. If I see it or somebody makes a comment to me, talks to me, I'll look into it. And then often it's easily addressed. We come back, we give you the answer. But I did see it, and it did seem a little
harsh,
a little aggressive for sure. So that I'm going to have conversations with staff about, because I have some questions further to that. But if we could start gathering some of the questions and what we feel, or not what we feel, but what we've seen to be the main concerns around this, and then if we can give the answers. Again, we need to control the information that we're sharing. If it's about us and our program, we need to make sure the right information is being shared. So that is my report turned into it. Please.
All right, thank you, Councillor Gould. I don't have a lot to report other than I was at the open house. I was there from start to finish. I estimated, 150 people came through. A lot of very good questions, a lot of people in support of the program, a lot of people supporting the water meter system itself, but of course upset about the delivery of the information. As Councillor Gould, I received my letter, which was worded nicely. I did not know that there was an angry letter until I saw it posted online. That got my attention, and it was like, oh my goodness, no wonder so many people are up in arms about this. And I've since determined that it was Neptune who was doing all the communication on our behalf, which should never have happened, and I apologize for that. It's very unfortunate. Other than that, the next day I got my meter installed, and it's got 4 90-degree angles in it. It looks like a cartoon of some kind. It's really kind of interesting, but it's level and it doesn't leak. So I guess at this point that's a good thing. But I have a legacy.
Like that picture.
No, not like the crazy picture
Okay.
that's online. No, but I have a legacy home as well. I believe mine was built in Allenby and moved over in the 50s. So. Yeah, the water would be probably dating back to the 50s.
So more like a this.
No, mine's like this.
Which is completely different than what's referenced in that bylaw.
In the bylaw.
Yeah. Anyway,
I have
that's my
questions, though.
report. I have been given a lengthy report from Mayor Coyne to read, so
Can I,
bear with me.
before
Yes.
we leave that topic, one other thing I mentioned, and which is I wish we would have had the ability to review before it's sent out. The message from Neptune didn't even say that it's a grant-funded program. Like,
You say what?
that it was grant-funded. Like, our initial notice that we sent out, this was the water meter program. It mentions about it being 100% grant-funded, provincial grant funding, da-da-da-da-da, and then the next steps. And then when you get it from here, it's, like, I just think it was, I don't know. I digress.
Yes. All right, the mayor's report, Mayor Spencer Coyne, April 24th, myself and 3 other mayors whose communities have had the virtual ER doctor initiated in our hospitals at an online meeting to compare whether we have received complaints or how it is impacting each other's communities. Consensus was that there has not been much feedback from the community. April 28th to May 2, he was in Silga in Revelstoke along with Councillor Gould. There were really good discussions. We had presentations from George Abbott, Chief Commissioner for the BC Treaty Process, and from Don Lidstone on the Cowichan decision. He was also elected to the position of second vice president. Congratulations, Mayor Coyne. On May 5th, Mayor Coyne attended the open house on water meters. There are many questions and emotions surrounding this topic. I've asked staff to work on addressing the issues raised, including the Neptune letters sent to residents. I feel that we need to take the community's concerns seriously. I've also asked staff to find solutions to the concerns that fit within the grant guidelines and do not jeopardize much needed future provincial and federal grant programs. I have spoken with representatives from Merit about some of the allegations that were made online. Those representatives stated that although contentious, the representation on Princeton social media does not reflect the reality of the experience in Merit. Staff can explain further, but the example that has been brought up on social media about Toronto was also misrepresentation of the facts. It was not Neptune who installed the meters, it is Neptune who has been asked to come and fix the issues. According to the City of Toronto, the issue with the meters installed is a failing battery. The battery is a 20-year battery and has begun to fail, not the units themselves. The meters continue to function without issues except for the battery, which is needed to send billing information. The mayor continues to say the concerns are real. We need to balance the reality that without meters, provincial and federal grant programs are at risk. We need to balance the community's concern with the reality that without meters, our community would not receive infrastructure grants. The same grants that paid for the new wells at Memorial Park, the well 4 upgrade, and the water mains under the river are the only way a community of our size can afford these massive infrastructure programs. Communities around us are facing bills of $30 million or more for water system upgrades. We've been proactive to date and successful in securing financial support, but there are still millions in upgrades needed. Now we need to balance our community's fears and concerns with the fact that senior levels of government, the same ones who actually control how much money or how much water we get allocated and use, are telling us it's time to install these meters. Thank you to everyone who made time to attend the open house. May 6th, the mayor was in Victoria in February and was asked again by a minister if he would be interested in serving on a selected committee for the BC Achievement Foundation Community Award. On May 6th, he attended a ceremony at Government House in Victoria. May 7th, the mayor attended the RDOS board meeting. He also had a meeting with the Industrial Lands Office about the industrial park. The province has put out Look West jobs and prosperity for a stronger BC and Canada. The purpose of the meeting was to determine whether there was an opportunity for Princeton to capitalize on this strategy with the business park and to inform the province that Princeton has land available for investment opportunities. Unfortunately, we were missed when the province issued a call last October for information on available industrial land. There will be follow-up with ministry staff at a later date. And finally, from May 11th to 13th, the mayor is away at the BC Economic Development Association Annual Summit, which is in Penticton this year. He has had a number of side meetings around tourism, business supports, manufacturing supports, and collaboration. One thing that has become clear between the May 7th meeting with the ILO and this week so far is that the province is moving fast to try to implement economic opportunities. As a result, if you do not have a prepared plan on the shelf, your community will be passed by. The FIFA events and funding to date have gone to plans that are already actionable and ready to go. Investment from Look West are also going to areas with clear development plans and they can touch and read. As a result, the mayor will be bringing forward recommendations based on what he's learning about how investment and development funds are being allocated across the province to keep Princeton competitive. The mayor apologizes for being unable to attend today's meeting. All right, let's move on to item number 8, correspondence, receive and file. Item 8.1, letter from the city of Langford. This is about permanent daylight saving time and the impacts on safe routes to schools. Recommendation is that item number 8.1 be received and filed.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Gould, seconded by Councillor McLean. All in favor? Thank you very much. Item number 9, correspondence with action requested. Item 9.1, letter from Carrie Torgerson. She spoke earlier. She's speaking about residential water meter installation and a request for clarification and deferral for the property located at 149 Tapton. Recommendation is that the letter from Carrie Torgerson regarding the clarification and deferral of water meter installation at 149 Tapton be referred to staff to respond. Your wishes.
So
Moved. What? Sorry?
can I make the motion to, but staff to, because I think it needs to come back to us to, like, so we have an idea of what the process is, or we need more discussion? Because I don't think.
Your point of developing like a fact sheet kind of thing is a good idea. You know, like we're starting to get some themes of the questions that are being asked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so we've, you know, anything that was directed to me, you know, like a letter to me, I've responded to, which has been like 4. But anything that's addressed to mayor and council, it goes to mayor and council. But I think that it's, you know, they're all the same questions. So I think coming up with a general fact sheet is a good idea.
The importance on the insurance. Do I have to make the motion before I really talk on it?
I would prefer that.
I'll make the motion.
All right, seconded by Councillor McLean. Now you may speak on the motion. Thank you.
Sorry. The concern is like turning the water off, turning it back on, causing legacy plumbing to fail. So I had been trying to find an answer from insurer in regards to that. And, you know, every insurance company is different. So it kind of goes back to check with your insurance company, because the other concern in regards to the plumbing and stuff was that it wouldn't be covered because they're, say, in the flats and they don't have water insurance. Well, you might not have overland water insurance, but plumbing should be separate. So go back to your insurer. It's hard to get it nailed down in writing, a response to that. So I'd be interested to know from staff before a response. Like, I think more than anything,
Well, I think we'll work
if we
together.
just, if we give it,
Yeah.
delegate it back to staff to respond, we as council don't see it again.
Yeah.
To know.
I think we need to work together on a response.
Absolutely.
Yes, for sure. Can I request a timeline on when that response will be?
Sure. I mean, the letter's to you guys, so.
Yeah. So we can't answer it until you have the questions. I don't have the questions. This is not my department, right? So that's where it has to go back to you. Then we can make a decision, I think. So to go back to staff with a recommendation, to staff to make a recommendation. And I don't think it needs to come back for a council meeting as a motion, just that I think we can, and have in the past, agreed by email, yes, we're in agreement with that response.
And do you want your motion to include a notation that those answers be the foundation of a fact sheet
If
that's
that- if
distributed
that-
to the public?
Well, this is one private person that's asking. I think that fact sheet is a total different thing. If I need to make, and you guys can counsel me on that, because I don't know that policy. If I need to make a second motion under new business, I'd be more than happy to do that too. But I think just a friendly ask of staff to prepare something would work.
I think this is the appropriate place, yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask the question. All in favor? Carried. All right, let's go on to item,
You wanted to say?
oh, I'm sorry, you had a question?
Well, in my mind, there's so many things that we have to consider here. This, in my mind, this has to go back to staff with the problems put in front of them. Then that needs to come back to council, because there's financial decisions that are gonna have to be made as a result of the recommendations that come out of staff. So it's a process, and you know, we're throwing it in your lap for the time being. But when it comes down to decisions that are gonna have to be made from a financial position, that's where we come in and try to figure out how we progress with this.
So,
Because there's no end to it. There's not just one item or two items, there's a whole myriad of things that have to be considered. And I don't relish the job of trying to come back with some recommendations in terms of things that we as a council have to look at.
and just in that one that's on the agenda is for one property. And it could possibly be that property isn't eligible either,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that it's always on a case-by-case basis, and
Yeah.
the first step is to have someone come to your home and evaluate it. Like, it may be that it's not possible,
Yeah.
you know, so.
So like then in general, like Councilor McLean is speaking on that, it needs to come back, this needs to have more discussion with council.
Yep.
But in regards to just this letter and this request and for this one home, that is my answer, that we, staff give a recommendation.
All right, item 9.2, email from the Princeton Community Arts Council with an invitation to the Copper Valley Music Festival being held August 21, 22, and 23, 2026 at the Bridge Street Plaza. The motion reads that mayor and council attend the Princeton Community Arts Council Copper Valley Music Festival, August 21, 22, 23, 2026 at the Bridge Street Plaza as available.
So we'll
Councilor McLean,
So
Councilor
second.
Gould,
With
all
an
in favor?
addendum
Sorry, with an addendum.
that, reminder, an invitation goes out to the council, so.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. All right. Item 10, bylaws and resolutions. 10.1, 2026 to 2030 5-year financial plan. Director of Finance, would you like to take that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So we moved to third reading on the financial plan on April 15th. Again, the financial plan also must be submitted to the province before May 15th, so that would be May 14th, which is tomorrow. So I would ask that council adopt the financial plan bylaw as presented on third reading, so I can get it off to the province on time for tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. Moved by Councillor McLean,
I'm seconding and I have
seconded by
Comments.
Councillor Gould. Any questions?
questions, comments. So, Director of Finance, this report that you gave to us in this agenda, did you read? It's reflecting that it's old information that's reflecting, it hasn't been updated in your background. Like, it's asking for adoption today. I am in support of adopting it. Nothing changed since last meeting, but it's just the report reflects the same as last meeting. So I just want a housekeeping that this is no changes have been, these changes didn't happen, there are no new changes. This is the exact same presentation from last time, but just simply adoption.
That's right.
All in favor? Carried. Item 10.2, 2026 tax rates bylaw, and I bet you want to jump on that one too, don't you?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm gonna sound a little bit like a broken record because we're doing everything on the same day.
It's all good.
But the tax rates bylaw was passed for 3 readings on April the 15th. Again, it is due for the province the day before May 15th, so May 14th, which is tomorrow. So by provincial requirements, I need council to adopt the tax rates bylaw so it can be submitted to the province on time. Thank you.
All right, tax rate increase is?
3.05.
Interesting to note that in Karameus it's 9.15.
Wow.
Yep. So the motion reads that the Town of Princeton tax rate bylaw number 1066, 2026 be adopted.
So I'll make the motion.
All right, moved by Councillor Gould, seconded by Councillor McLean. Comments?
Yes. So again, first, second, third reading happened on April 15th. And you, at that time, discussed and explained the reasons for the increase. And let's talk mill rates. Can you please just reconfirm, like, our average mill rate, did it go up or down based on last year?
Went up slightly.
Like,
Again, it's mill rates are a reflection of individual classes. So the total amount of residential value, total amount of industrial value, total amount of commercial value, where they sit at the end of the year, and then adjusted for an applicable increase. So our increase was 3.05, as was stated by Deputy Mayor Elliott. It's one of the lower increases in the Southern Interior region. We're always striving as much as possible to remove the burden from residential taxpayers in line with our tax rate policy set by council. So I believe we've done that with this budget, yeah, so the mill rates are up slightly, but that's a reflection of both the tax increase and where assessments landed between 2024 and 2025.
okay, so yes, overall, the tax increased by 3%, like based on overall value of it. I'm just saying the average, the mill rate per thousand
Right.
was like minimal.
Right, so when I quote a tax increase, it's based on the amount of revenue the municipality will collect overall.
Right, so my point being that the mill rate per thousand, you had it on the last report, it's not on this one, so I can't just tell you, can't give you the numbers, but it was like pennies, wasn't dollars per
Yeah.
thousand.
Yeah.
So arguably, if your value of your home increased, your taxes should increase. But your overall taxes aren't going up by 3% per thousand.
That's right.
Is my point I'm
Yes,
making.
and it's all varied on individual increases and decreases in
Right.
the assessment, so, as I believe you're trying to allude to, Councillor
Yes,
Gould,
please.
you know,
Follow.
the number one way to reduce property taxes, that if you think your house is overvalued, contact BC Assessment when that first notice comes out in January, and try and get that valuation of your individual home decreased, because that's the number one cause of overpaying of taxes, is having too high of a house assessment for
Yeah.
what it should actually be valued at.
Yes, thank you, and then just a housekeeping, your report also is the same report from the 15th of.
All right, I'm gonna ask the question. All in favor? Carried. On to item 11, new business, no new business. Item number 12, agenda conclusion, motion 12.1, Motion to close, recommendation that the meeting be closed to the public for the purposes of considering the following. 90.1 subsection K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public.
So moved.
So seconded, all in favor, carried. All right, thank you everybody
And
for
then-
attending today's meeting. I hope it was interesting.